Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are opening a dossier that, well, on the surface, it looks like a pretty standard after-action report on a terrorist event.
Right.
But as you start turning the pages, you realize we're looking at something much, much more unsettling. We're analyzing the Secret Service affair.
And it is a massive file. I mean, we're pulling from reports filed in Amsterdam, London, Cyprus, Tel Aviv. And what stands out immediately is that this isn't just a story about a kidnapping.
Yeah.
It's a case study on the failure of modern intelligence gathering, a really profound one.
Right. It's about the gaps between the agencies, the seams. We're going to be talking about the abduction of Elizabeth Holton. She's the daughter of the American ambassador to the UK.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get to the sirens and the breaking news, I want to look at the mission of this deep dive.
Yeah.
We aren't just here to recount the plot. We're trying to understand the ecosystem that allowed this to happen in the first place.
Exactly. We need to unpack what the dossier calls the hidden war. Most of us, we live our lives assuming that if there's a threat, someone, somewhere, is tracking.
You assume there's a system.
You assume there's a system. And this dossier proves that assumption is, well, it's dangerous. We're going to see how Western intelligence agencies, specifically the CIA and Britain's MI5, were completely outmaneuvered by a network they thought they understood.
And then what happens when that system fails?
And then we're going to look at the off-the-books solution that had to be deployed when all the official channels just froze up.
And the players here are just fascinating characters. You have Gabriel Allon, an art restorer who is, in reality, a legendary assassin for Israeli intelligence.
A living ghost, basically.
Yeah. Then you have Elizabeth Holton, the hostage, but she's a doctor. She's not a passive victim. And then there's the shadow figure, a mastermind known only as the Sphinx. But let's start where the dossier starts. Not with the explosion, but with the quiet before the storm. London. A seemingly peaceful Friday morning.
It's so important to set that baseline. The reports describe Hyde Park as idyllic. It's all about the routine. And Elizabeth Holton is a creature of habit. She's an emergency room doctor, so she's disciplined.
Right. Structured.
Very. Every Friday, she goes for a run, same time, same path.
And looking at her profile in the file, she's not just anyone. She is the daughter of Robert Holton, who is essentially American royalty. He's wealthy, powerful, politically connected.
And this is the crucial part that becomes the leverage point. She is the goddaughter of the sitting president of the United States.
Wow.
So the personal stakes for the White House they're off the charts.
But here's the thing that stands out in the security assessment. Elizabeth Holton, she hated the security bubble. She wanted to feel normal.
It's what the Secret Service calls the principal's dilemma. You have this incredibly high-value target who refuses to live like a prisoner in a gilded cage.
So she pushes back.
Constantly. So her security detail was light. It was a compromise. 2 agents, a trailing car. It was specifically designed to be unobtrusive, to give her that feeling of normalcy she craved.
Which, of course, creates the vulnerability, the gap. The attackers knew this. They must have studied her for weeks. They knew her routine better than she did.
And the attack, when it came, was total. It wasn't just a snatch and grab. It was a synchronized assault designed to paralyze the entire city's infrastructure. While Elizabeth is jogging past the Serpentine Gallery,
Right.
Suicide bombers strike the London Underground. Coordinated blasts, Piccadilly Circus, Leicester Square, Charing Cross, Marble Arch, all at once.
The dossier lists the preliminary casualty count in the underground at over 300 people. That's it's staggering. It completely paralyzes the emergency response system.
It's a classic military diversion, but scaled up for urban terror. It sucks all the oxygen out of the room. Every police car, every ambulance, the SAS, everyone is vectoring toward the smoke pouring out of the tube stations.
So no one is looking at the park.
No one is looking at Hyde Park. And in the park, the attackers are hiding in plain sight. They're dressed as Royal Parks contractors. Gardeners. With bright orange vests and everything.
This is such a terrifying example of social engineering. We are all trained to ignore service workers. You see a man in a high-vis vest raking leaves or picking up trash, and your brain just renders him invisible.
He's background scenery.
Exactly. You don't see a threat. You just see part of the city at work. And they use that psychological blind spot to get within touching distance of the ambassador's daughter.
It's brilliant and it's horrifying.
So the city is gridlocked, the police are completely distracted, and these gardeners pull out machine pistols from their wheelbarrows. But there's one glitch in their otherwise perfect plan. One person who wasn't supposed to be there.
Gabriel Allon.
Gabriel Allon.
He is the outlier, the one variable they couldn't account for. He's standing on the periphery watching this whole thing. He's the only one in the entire city of London who knows this is about to happen. But he has no backup, no badge, no authority whatsoever.
He tries to intervene. And we'll get to that firefight, but I want to pause here, because the big question that hangs over this entire dossier is, why? Why was an Israeli spy standing in a park in London waiting for an attack that the British intelligence services officially said wasn't going to happen?
And to answer that, you have to rewind. You have to go back a few days to Amsterdam.
Amsterdam is where the fuse was lit.
It really is. And it starts with a murder, a man named Solomon Rosner.
So let's profile Rosner. The dossier calls him a sociologist. He's the director of the Center for European Security Studies. But he wasn't just some academic writing papers in an ivory tower, was he?
Not at all. Rosner was what the file calls a canary in the coal mine. He published a very controversial book called The Islamic Conquest of the West. He was basically arguing that the Netherlands was being hollowed out from the inside by radical network.
And this made him unpopular.
That's putting it mildly. He was a pariah. The Dutch press called him a racist and alarmist. He was getting death threats on a daily basis.
The source material mentions he lived near the Zuiderkerk Tower, and the sound of the church bells drove him crazy. It sounds like he was a man completely on edge.
He was a man under siege in his own city. But the detail that matters most for our story, the detail that brings Gabriel Allon into the picture, is that Rosner was a scion.
I want to pause on this term, scion. The dossier lists Rosner as one, but it doesn't look like he was on the payroll or anything. This feels like something unique to the Israeli intelligence structure, doesn't it? I mean, the CIA doesn't really have an equivalent to this.
It is unique, and it's a really controversial pillar of their tradecraft. The word itself comes from the Hebrew for helper. So think of it as a dormant network of assets embedded in the Jewish diaspora around the world.
So not professional spies.
Not at all. You're talking about regular citizens, doctors, lawyers, real estate agents, car rental owners, or in Rosner's case, academics who aren't spies. They don't have code names usually. They don't get formal training. But they have a deep, abiding loyalty to the state of Israel.
So it's less James Bond and more. The guy who quietly lends you a car or lets you use his office basement for a few hours. No questions asked.
Precisely. And that's both the genius and the incredible danger of it. It gives the office, which is their term for the Mossad, an immense logistical advantage globally. They don't need to go through the hassle of renting a safe house under a fake name. They just call a local Sayan.
But for Rosner, this dual loyalty put a massive target on his back. He wasn't just an academic writing controversial papers anymore. He was an active node in a foreign intelligence network that was operating on Dutch soil.
And he was feeding information directly to Ari Shamron, the legendary, almost mythical spy master in Tel Aviv.
And then he gets murdered. The report says execution style, a single shot to the back of the head, right near the Café de Dolin.
Right. And this is where you see the cold, brutal cynicism of the intelligence world kick in. When Rosner dies, Israel doesn't send a team to catch the killer. That's a job for the Dutch police.
They send a cleaner.
They send Gabriel Allon to clean the files.
Pure damage control.
Pure and simple. His only mission is to scrub Rosner's apartment, his computer, his office, to ensure there is absolutely no paper trail linking him back to Tel Aviv. If the Dutch government ever found out that a prominent, controversial professor was secretly spying for Israel, the diplomatic fallout would be catastrophic.
So Gabriel arrives in Amsterdam. He's undercover as a German art consultant named Heinrich Kiever. And he's working with a character named Eli Levon. I love the description of Levon in the notes. He's described as looking like he's wearing all of his clothes at once, a very fussy, anxious man.
Eli Levon is a deeply deceptive character. He looks like a lost accountant who wandered in off the street, but he is arguably the best surveillance artist in the world. He's a tracker. While Gabriel is the sword, the kinetic element, Levon is the eyes. He sees things nobody else does.
And together, they're going through Rosner's massive archive. The report says hundreds of thousands of documents, and they start to see a pattern emerging that the local police completely missed.
They realize Rosner hadn't just been writing about general theories. He had identified a specific active threat, a man named Samir al-Masri.
Samir al-Masri.
And Samir fits the profile of the modern European-based urban terrorist perfectly. He's not, living in a cave in Afghanistan. He's in a sloppy apartment in a working-class neighborhood in Amsterdam. He works at an internet shop. He tells people he's a freelance journalist.
The perfect cover.
But Rosner had flagged him. He had identified him as a key recruiter for a group called the Sword of Allah.
And this is where the investigation takes a very strange turn.
Mm-hmm.
Gabriel is on the street, and he realizes he's being followed. This isn't a normal meet. It's tense.
It is. The man following him is Ibrahim Fawaz. This encounter is absolutely pivotal to the whole affair. Fawaz plays the part of the anxious source. He kind of corners Gabriel, or more accurately, lets himself be cornered, and claims that he was one of Rosner's sources. He was helping him.
So he's presenting himself as an ally.
As an ally, yes. He tells Gabriel that Samir al-Masri and his entire cell have suddenly vanished, dropped off the map. And then he drops this one terrifying line. He says, buildings are going to fall.
Buildings are going to fall. It's so specific, yet just vague enough to be utterly terrifying. So Gabriel decides he can't wait for permission. He has to act on this. He breaks into Samir's apartment.
And this scene really highlights the fundamental difference between police work and spy work. The Dutch police, they need a warrant, they need probable cause. Gabriel just picks a lock.
Right.
The apartment is described as a total dump dirty dishes, clothes everywhere. It's the perfect bachelor slob camouflage. But in the trash, or rather mixed in with all the clutter on a desk, Gabriel finds the smoking gun.
A yellow legal pad.
Just a simple yellow legal pad. And on it are some doodles. Now, to you or me, it would just look like meaningless scribbles, but you have to remember who Gabriel Allon is. His cover, his actual life's work, is as one of the world's foremost art restorers. He spends his life looking at tiny brushstrokes, memorizing the finest details of Renaissance paintings.
He has a photographic memory.
An eidetic memory for images. He looks at those lines and he realizes it's not a random doodle, it's a map.
A map of Hyde Park in London.
A perfect two-scale rendering. It matches the London A to Z street atlas perfectly. He can see the carriage roads, the Serpentine Lake, the specific footpaths near the American ambassador's residence on Winfield House. This is the intel. This is the proof that the attack isn't going to be in Amsterdam. It's going to be in London.
So he takes this intel, this one piece of paper, and he runs to London. He pulls strings, cashes in favors, and manages to secure a high-level meeting with MI5. And this brings us to the central failure of the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
He meets with Graham Seymour, who is the Deputy Director General of MI5, a very senior official. Now, I really struggle with this meeting. Seymour isn't stupid. He's at the top of his game. Why does he just toss this incredible piece of intel aside? Is it just pure arrogance?
It's easy to just label it as arrogance, but I think it's more complicated. Let's try to look at it from Seymour's desk for a moment. The files mention that MI5 at that time was completely drowning in chatter.
Right.
They're actively tracking 1,600 identified suspects in the UK alone. They have 200 active networks to watch. They have a very limited number of surveillance teams.
It's the classic signal-to-noise ratio problem.
Exactly. To Gabriel, that yellow legal pad is a smoking gun because he found it in the apartment of a known terrorist recruiter. He has the context. To Seymour, it's just another unverified, unsubstantiated scrap of paper in a sea of unverified threats. Seymour basically says, I can't shut down central London and cause a citywide panic because an Israeli art restorer I've never met found a doodle.
He also suffers from a classic case of mirror imaging, doesn't he? He assumes the terrorists will think like he does.
Absolutely. He assumes the target is the American embassy itself on Grosvenor Square. He says, Grosvenor Square is a fortress. They'll never get near it. He assumes the terrorists want the symbolic hard target.
And he completely fails to imagine that they would go for the soft target.
The daughter on a morning run. It's a total failure of imagination.
And it's also a massive clash of cultures.
Huge. You have the British model of intelligence, which is evidence-based, legalistic. We need proof to make an arrest. We follow due process. And then you have the Israeli model, which is all about prevention at all costs.
A different philosophy entirely.
If there is a 1% chance of an attack, you neutralize the threat first and you deal with the legal fallout later. Gabriel leaves that meeting knowing, with a sinking feeling, that he is completely on his own.
And that brings us right back to the park. The attack unfolds just as the map predicted. The diversion worked perfectly. The gardeners attacked the security detail. The file includes a transcript from the regional security officer's radio. Chris Petty is his name. He's on the phone when it happens, and his last word is gardeners. And then the line just goes dead.
That detail is just haunting. It shows you how effective that disguise was. The threat was literally invisible until it was far too late.
And Gabriel runs toward the gunfire, not away from it. The dossier describes his reaction as mechanical, almost automatic. Tap, tap. 2 shots per target.
It's muscle memory. This is the difference between a trained operative and a civilian. Under that kind of extreme stress, your brain floods with cortisol. Most people freeze or flee. It's fight or flight. But Gabriel's training overrides that. He enters the ODA loop: observe, orient, decide, act faster than anyone else in the scene.
He manages to kill 3 of the terrorists. The report says he actually gets his hands on Samir al-Masri, the cell leader from Amsterdam.
He does, but he's overwhelmed. He's one man with a Beretta against a heavily armed, well-coordinated squad with submachine guns. He wounds Samir, but they manage to drag Elizabeth into the back of a van. And then, in the ultimate tragic irony, the British police finally arrive.
And who do they arrest?
They arrest Gabriel. They storm onto the scene, and they see a man with a gun standing over 3 dead bodies. So they tackle him, they beat him down. The only man who tried to stop the attack is in handcuffs on the grass while the van carrying the president's goddaughter speeds away.
It's a complete and total disaster, and the press gets hold of it almost immediately. The headlines are screaming, "Israeli spy in Hyde Park shootout."
Which means his cover is blown. Permanently. His face is on the front page of every newspaper in the world. He's burned. He can't operate in Europe anymore, at least not in any official or legal capacity. He's a ghost.
Okay, let's shift perspective now to Elizabeth Halton. She's now in the hands of the enemy. The dossier gives us a pretty grim look at her conditions. It describes a small cell, cinder blocks, an army cot. She's been drugged with ketamine.
But this is where we see that Elizabeth is not just a passive victim, she's a surgeon. Her training is just as ingrained and just as automatic as Gabriel's. She wakes up, she assesses her situation, her injuries, her surroundings, and she suppresses the panic. She goes into professional mode.
And almost immediately, she faces this incredible moral dilemma that feels like it's straight out of a philosophy textbook. One of her kidnappers is dying. It's the one Gabriel shot in the leg during the ambush in the park.
Right. The wound is bad. It's becoming septic.
And the leader, Samir, drags her to see the wounded man and demands that she fix him.
Just think about the psychology here for a moment. These men just murdered her friends, her protectors, in cold blood. They are holding her for ransom. And yet, when faced with this dying man, she agrees to treat him.
So why does she do it? Is it just the Hippocratic Oath kicking in? Or is it a tactical decision to stay alive?
I think it's both.
Yeah.
The dossier calls it tactical empathy. By agreeing to treat the wound, she completely changes the dynamic in that room. She stops being the hostage, this piece of property, and she becomes the doctor.
She becomes an authority figure.
Exactly. She starts giving orders, telling them what medical supplies to get from a local chemist. She asserts a level of control.
And she has to improvise in this horrific way. She performs surgery using a straight razor. Right. She has them sterilized with a cigarette lighter and a pair of needle-nose pliers.
It's practically medieval. She has to debride the wound, which means cutting away all the dead and infected tissue with no anesthetic for the patient. But she does it. She saves his leg and probably his life. And in doing so, she establishes this very strange, complex bond with her captors. The file says she even nicknames them Cain and Abel.
That survival instinct is just incredible. But while she is buying herself time in that cell, and by the way, she figures out she's somewhere on the Norfolk coast because of the name on a chemist's bag she sees, the political clock back in London and Washington is moving much, much faster. And it's moving in completely the wrong direction.
Right, because once the news broke and the scale of the coordinated attack became clear, the entire diplomatic machinery just seized up. The dossier describes the atmosphere in the U.S. Embassy as controlled panic. You have Ambassador Halton, who is just a broken man. He tells Gabriel, "I'd give them anything they want, anything."
But the official policy of the United States is no concessions.
And that phrase is so easy to say in a sterile briefing room. We don't negotiate with terrorists. It's policy. It's doctrine.
But when it's the president's goddaughter, when he's getting calls from her father every hour.
The dossier makes it very clear. The president was paralyzed. He couldn't trade a prisoner for her without incentivizing every terrorist group in the world to start kidnapping American diplomats. It would be a disaster of foreign policy. But he also couldn't just let her die. It's the principal's dilemma on a global scale. The bureaucracy simply could not solve this problem.
So Adrian Carter at the CIA realizes he needs a workaround. He needs an unofficial channel.
Adrian Carter is the Deputy Director of Operations. He's a cold-blooded realist. He knows the FBI and the CIA are completely handcuffed by their own regulations. They can't just go kicking down doors in friendly European countries without causing a major international incident. He calls it the era of the gentlemen from Princeton and Yale. The agency has become risk-averse.
So he turns to the one man who isn't. He turns to the Israelis. He arranges a clandestine meeting with Gabriel at a CIA safe house near Langley. and essentially subcontracts the rescue mission.
It's the ultimate exercise in plausible deniability. He tells Gabriel, find her and get her back, and the CIA will look the other way. He'll provide support, intel, money, but unofficially. If Gabriel succeeds, the U.S. wins and the president is a hero. If Gabriel fails and gets caught or killed...
It's just a rogue Israeli operation. The U.S. knows nothing about it.
Exactly. It's cynical, but it's how statecraft functions in the shadows when your hands are tied by your own laws.
So Gabriel is back in the game, but he needs a lead. The trail in London is completely cold, the van disappeared, so he goes to the marketplace of secrets. He goes to Cyprus.
Cyprus is such a fascinating location in the world of intelligence. Geographically, it's a crossroads between Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. It's a place where spies from rival nations can meet on neutral ground. And Gabriel goes there to meet a man named Wazir al-Zayat.
Let's look at this transaction, because Gabriel isn't just meeting some low-level snitch. He's meeting a peer, Wazir al-Zayat. Who is this guy?
Wazir is a relic of the old school. He is a very high-ranking officer in the Egyptian secret police, the SSI, specifically the department that hunts religious extremists. The dossier paints him as this very suave, very corrupt man who enjoys the finer things in life, expensive suits, beachfront villas in Cyprus, all paid for by selling information.
He's a bad guy who works for the good guys.
He's effectively a monster hunter who is also a monster, and this meeting feels dirty. You have our hero, Gabriel, sitting down with a man who almost certainly runs torture chambers back in Cairo, and Gabriel hands him a briefcase with $50,000 in cash.
It's the gray world that the source material keeps emphasizing.
It is. To catch a master manipulator like the Sphinx, you have to do business with devils like Wazir. That $50,000 in that briefcase isn't really a bribe, it's the price of admission. It's just business.
And what does Gabriel actually buy for that cash? It's more than just a name, isn't it? Wazir hands over the entire history of the Sword of Allah. I hadn't heard of the University of Minya connection before reading this dossier.
It's a crucial detail that Western intelligence had missed. Minya is in Upper Egypt, and in the 70s and 80s, its university was a hotbed for radical student movements. Wazir explains that this group isn't just a random cell of thugs, they are intellectuals, they're graduates, they have a doctrine. And they merged the ideological ferocity of the Egyptian Islamic Jihad with the global reach and funding of bin Laden's al-Qaeda.
So this isn't a ragtag group at all. This is a corporate merger of terror networks.
A perfect analogy. Al-Qaeda provided the logistics and the muscle for the London bombings, the big noisy diversion. But the kidnapping? That required a level of surgical precision and patience that is the unique trademark of these Egyptian groups. And Wazir gives Gabriel the name of the CEO of this new terrifying merger, the Sphinx.
Dr. Yusuf Ramadan.
And this reveal is just staggering when you read it. Yusuf Ramadan is a respected, even celebrated professor of history living in Paris. He writes scholarly books about the Crusades. He's on the lecture circuit. He wears tweed jackets and drinks espresso on the left bank with French intellectuals.
It's the perfect cover.
It's the ultimate camouflage. He's hiding behind his own intellect. Who would ever suspect that the charming history professor is actually plotting the future of global jihad? But Wazir confirms it. Ramadan is the Sphinx. And then he tells Gabriel what the demand will be before the terrorists even release their video.
They want Sheikh Abdullah Abdul Razak released from prison.
The spiritual leader of the Sword of Allah. He's blind, he's dying of cancer, and he's sitting in a U.S. federal supermax prison. They want him flown back to Egypt so he can die a hero and a martyr on home soil.
And they set a deadline, next Friday at 6:00 p.m. London time, or Elizabeth Halton will be executed.
And Wazir is very, very specific about this. He tells Gabriel, these men do not bluff. They are not merchants in a bazaar. When the second hand hits the 12, she is dead.
So now the clock is ticking. Gabriel has the name of the mastermind in Paris. He has a hard deadline. But he still has no idea where Elizabeth is actually being held. And the CIA has officially washed its hands of the tactical side of the operation.
So Gabriel goes home. He flies to Tel Aviv. He goes to the office, and he activates his personal team. This is what the dossier refers to as the Gabriel's Lair segment.
It feels a bit like one of those getting the band back together scenes in a movie, but these are incredibly serious specialists. Let's just run through the roster quickly. We already know Eli Levon, the surveillance genius.
Then you have Mikhail. He is simply listed as the gunman. He's Russian-born, a former special forces operator. If Levon is the brain of the field team, Mikhail is the trigger finger. He's described as having personally destroyed half of the Hamas command infrastructure in Gaza. He's a precise instrument of violence.
Then you have Yakov and Yossi, the field agents, and Dina, who is described as a walking encyclopedia on terrorism. And then you have Sarah Bancroft. She's the official CIA liaison, but she's really one of Gabriel's own protégés.
She is. She's an art historian by training, whom Gabriel recruited and trained as an operative on a previous mission. She's important because she can move in the official diplomatic and academic circles that the others can't. She's the bridge between the American world of Langley and the Israeli world of this secret team.
But they need a break. They know who the Sphinx is, but just grabbing him off the street in Paris might not yield the location of the girl in time. He's too disciplined. They need a weaker link, a leverage point. And this is where the dossier reveals the biggest twist of the investigation. The man in Amsterdam, Ibrahim Fawaz.
The helpful source. The man who conveniently gave Gabriel the tip about the legal pad.
Gabriel and his team reanalyze all the intelligence Wazir gave them, and they find a name deep in the archives. They realize Fawaz wasn't a helpful bystander. He is a founding member of the Sword of Allah.
And this just changes the entire narrative of the first act of the story. It means Fawaz didn't warn Gabriel to try and stop the attack. He was playing a double game.
But why? What was the motive?
That's the question. Maybe he was feeding Gabriel a low-level cell to clear the way for the main event. Maybe it was some kind of internal power struggle within the organization. We don't know for sure. But the crucial fact is, Fawaz is inside the circle. He knows where the girl is being held.
So the mission profile changes instantly. They aren't going to try and arrest Fawaz.
No. They are going to kidnap him. It's an extraordinary rendition.
This is a heavy concept. A foreign intelligence team from Israel, unofficially backed by the U.S., entering a friendly, allied country, the Netherlands, to kidnap a legal resident and smuggle him across the border into Germany for interrogation.
It's a felony. It's a flagrant violation of national sovereignty. If they get caught and the Dutch government will arrest them, the U.S. will completely disavow them, and the Israeli government will be humiliated on the world stage. The personal and geopolitical risk is astronomical.
But they decide it's the only way. They set up a forward operating base on a houseboat in Amsterdam called the Helene,
which is classic intelligence tradecraft. Houseboat moves. It has no fixed address. It's the perfect temporary deniable base. They acquire untraceable cars. They have the full team in place. And they have less than 5 days left on the clock.
And the plan is to take him to a safe house in Germany.
Yes, a remote farmhouse near the city of Oldenburg. And the dossier is brutally blunt about why they chose that location. They need a place where no one can hear the screams.
They're going to torture him for the information. Squeeze him dry, as the text says.
And this brings us right to the core ethical rot at the center of this entire case. To save a life, to protect the civilized world, Gabriel Allon has to use the methods of the barbarians. He has to become a kidnapper and a torturer to save the hostage.
It's the ticking time bomb scenario, but it's not a philosophical exercise. It's real life.
Exactly. And the dossier leaves us right there on that precipice. The team is deployed. The clock is ticking down. Elizabeth is in that cold cell with Cain and Abel, holding on to the hope that her father can save her. Her father, the ambassador, is completely helpless. The CIA is handcuffed by its own rules.
And the only thing standing between her and a videotaped execution is a small team of Israeli spies sitting on a houseboat in Amsterdam, waiting for a man named Ibrahim Fawaz to walk down the street.
It's an incredible amount of tension.
It creates such a palpable tension. We started this deep dive talking about a peaceful morning run in Hyde Park, and we've traveled through the failures of bureaucracy, the absolute brutality of the attack, the cold transaction of buying secrets in Cyprus, and now we end up here, deep in the moral gray zone.
It forces you, the listener, to ask a really hard question. Do we actually want the seeking servant to exist? We all like to think we live in a world of laws and due process, the world of Graham Seymour in London. But when the unthinkable happens, when those laws and processes fail us, we suddenly desperately need a Gabriel Allon to step out of the shadows.
But can you have both? Can you have the rule of law and also have the off-the-books assassin on call?
That is the central paradox, isn't it? Perhaps the rule of law only survives because men like Gabriel are out there in the dark breaking all the rules to protect it.
That is a heavy thought to hold on to as we close out. We've unpacked the Secret Servant affair, from the first warning signs in Amsterdam to the desperate black operation that's about to launch in Europe. It's a story of intelligence failures, yes, but it's also a story about the true price of security.
And it's a reminder that sometimes the good guys don't look like knights in shining armor. Sometimes they look like quiet art restorers with blood on their hands.
We're going to leave it there. Thank you for listening to this deep dive. We hope this analysis gave you a new perspective on what happens in the shadows and the difficult choices that are made there. Until next time.